Okay, we are live on my end, but still private here.
Oh,
All right.
excellent connection.
Okay.
Okay, only darkness. Oh, it's thinking about it.
There it is.
Oh, look at you.
I'm switching angles. Probably like a 10-15 second delay. But
Bro,
there it is.
fantastic. You're a fucking
And then
wizard.
let me plug this in. Oh, wait, I don't know if we can hear yet. Is there a volume?
Yeah.
Oh, not yet, man.
Oh, no, it's just because it's on mute.
Nice.
Yeah.
Test
Oh,
here.
yeah. I will. God, I'm a fucking god.
Nice. Okay. All right, I'll hold this then.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Do you want to do... Oh, so I can figure that out. Okay. Do I have enough battery in that thing? Yeah. It's always nice when the thing that you think is going to happen happens. Hi. Hi. So we're going to set up this way. Hi, how you doing? I'm Mark.
I'm Elena.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for being here. Hi. What's your name?
Hi, Anna.
Anna, nice to meet you.
Nice to
Thank you
meet
for
you.
being here. So obviously near the heater, you'll be nice and toasty, so you can go back there if you want. This is just all gonna be like informal and fun, so at any point if you need to like shift, move, ask me questions, that's what we're gonna do. Cool. Can I kill the audio on that so I don't have to hear myself? Okay. I'm gonna lose my mind. Yeah.
So you'll be in line with Tam. Everyone, this is Tam.
1, 2, 3, 4. Kenz, are you taking or are you not taking?
No, I'm not taking.
Okay, cool. Perfect. No worries.
One per person?
One per
each?
person.
Okay.
Yep. I'm gonna give you this one. Yep. And then Misha can have this one. Oh, you're so prepared.
Hey guys. Oh yes. Yeah. Do you guys have water? Does anyone need water? I have.
How would I find the link for people to find this shit? Is it on mine or yours?
Yes, here, I got you. I'll do it. Do you want a map?
Nah, thank you.
Okay.
No, it's okay. Because originally that one was on private anyways. But I can also help you.
Can you check on the camera?
This is just plug it here.
Oh, you can't see shit, bro. You're good.
Oh man, we go like this.
Brandon. Not that zoom.
Ooh, it's pretty bad, huh? Why did they do that? What, your shorts? Yeah. Trying to go like this. Oh, I just have to. Well, it's not now. It's when you do this.
Okay. So we're private. Oh, so live.
It's okay.
Edit.
Seems like a weird thing to not be able to find. Would it be if you click out? It could make sense if it was the URL, right?
Yeah. Edit. Share. What's this? Share.
Oh, that a boy.
Copy video link.
Cool. And then let's just share that into our little group thread. Boom.
Boom.
Thanks, baby boy.
Yep.
Okay, so Tam, any other data I need to know about you that's happening? I know everything, right?
Stuff.
No, but I mean, like, yes, I'm trying to share with my people and audience that are not here, but y'all are the ones that came here, so y'all get the golden treatment, right? Any data or things you want to work on, or injuries or stuff that you want to focus in on today?
I probably pull my hip flexors every other month.
Okay. And when you say pull, what does that mean?
To the point where I just like can't lift my legs anymore.
Understood.
So
Okay.
I know they're super weak, and I like go on a streak of like I'm gonna strengthen my hip flexors.
Sure.
And it's good for like 2 weeks, and I forget about it, and then I pull them.
Understood.
So
Okay, so those are the biggest
like
priority.
Yeah.
Okay.
Strengthen that would be like awesome.
Okay, cool. That sounds great. Anything else?
Great little windows.
think so.
Okay,
I mean,
cool.
like anything you have to offer, I probably need. So.
Okay, sweet. All right, well, we'll focus in on that. Thank you for sharing with me. I appreciate you. My dear,
Can you see her?
you sure what you need?
Well, my right rotator cuff is always broken.
Okay.
It's always my fault. And then I really haven't moved in a really long time, so.
Understood. So just kind of like reacquainting the body.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will jump in and it will feel good.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you.
I thought you were like, this was like an idea for later. I'm like, oh, okay, so he's just like getting the idea started. I'm like, oh shit, there's cameras here today. What?
Oh, but like all of it is we're still learning and doing all the things too.
I'm like, oh.
But for real, like I want it to feel like you can ask questions or do things, so it's not like we're recording and whatever stuff, but mostly it's going to be us figuring out what went well with things and then adapting and changing and iterating off of that is all.
It's like a test run.
Yeah, pretty much. And it'll probably be like test runs throughout. Oh, you can't do anything wrong. No, you're great. Tam will try her hardest.
In my music video, 10,000. Did you do something for Philharmonic and you were flipping?
Yep.
I directed that.
Oh, cool.
And
Okay.
I remember your hair, and I just went, why do I have this visual of you flipping upside down?
Yep.
It's always Tam. If you see red and black hair and flipping, then
Yeah. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
I'm so old. How do I do a link? Oh, I figured it out. I'm a fucking genius.
Oh, nice. Fucking genius. Okay.
My things are so minimal. Make that look nicer. Thank you. I don't think so. No. Travel safely. I love you. Thank you. This would be fun. I'm just excited to teach.
All right.
Sexy?
Sexy.
Flexy?
Flexy.
Okay.
You know that, boy.
Okay. I'm just gonna start things and you guys can just kind of play. But I also think in the same way I was chatting with them, like informal. So if you're like, we need to move or maneuver or whatever, like, fuck it. Fair? I just said fuck it a lot, and we're currently live streaming, so I don't think so.
Because that's something that is going to be hard for me.
No, I think it's important to be able to express however it is that you're feeling. Okay, hi. So you two are brand new to me, which I appreciate you guys being here so much. We've connected through the lovely dance convention and stuff, and then you and I have just recently worked together. So we've got varying degrees of how much we know each other, how much we don't know each other, which is a good metaphor for how I approach all of the body stuff. Essentially, it all breaks down into relationships. So like for you two right now, you have no idea who I am. I'm just like a random person who you probably connected with the lovely Mackenzie. So because you respect and love Mackenzie, then there's a little bit of trust already earned there. So when we're dealing with like a specific injury, let me ask you, do you have any injuries or things? I chat with everybody else. Is there anything that you want to focus on in particular this evening?
Also, no.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Great. You're just
I have an open book.
Okay, I appreciate that so much. Okay, great. So when it comes to working with specific tissue or working with injuries or working with joints, whatever it might be, it's the same type of relationship game like how we're first time meeting each other, right? As I talk, hopefully it's like, oh, this guy is not that much of an idiot. I start to trust what he's saying, and so then we start to like each other more, and then there's more trust. Same thing goes with the tissue, and same thing goes with the joint. As we're going through, because obviously the tissue and the cells can't speak English. They can only speak force generation or sensation. And then anytime we get into subjective, sensation-y stuff, it's weird. So a lot of the time I will just use metaphors, and you can do the same thing, right? Everything's gonna land more reality with what is happening to you than how I'm describing it. So always trust yourself more than any teacher you ever go to, because that's the only thing that's real for you. Cool? Cool. Okay, good. So why don't you guys get started lying on your backs for a second? I know it's a little chilly, so I want us to like move up, warm up a bit, and then we'll move into the specifics of what we're going to work on. I don't need you to be in any specific position in your body except for something that feels happy. Okay, so that can be like a big floppy starfish or a hand to heart, hand to belly, or just lying still. And if it feels comfortable, you can close your eyes. And then we'll find a nice big full breath in, feel the belly rise and the ribs expand and your chest rise. And then out through your mouth, find a little exhale. Cool. Find 3 more like that, bless you. Do it, baby. Oh yeah, that probably makes sense. Good. A couple more here. I said 3 more, but I lied. We'll probably do a couple more. And with each exhale, I just want you to see if you can scan from your head all the way down to your toes, any area where there may be tension or sensation, and just kind of take note of where you are. It's kind of like, if we're continuing my kind of relationship theme today, if I'm trying to have the best conversation with you, it's not gonna be when I'm distracted and on my phone and upset about something. Right? So this little calm, still time in the beginning is a chance for you to mentally kind of be like, all right, my attention wants to go here, or my attention is here. How do I hone my attention into this space so that I can be as present for myself and for my body that I possibly can be? So if the monkey mind just won't shut up, and you're like, God, I'm just so being pulled away, start giving the attention stuff to do. So rather than fighting it, allow it to take in data, the sounds of the space, my voice, physical sensation of being still, temperature of the air, clothing on skin, the sensation of inhale, the sensation of exhale. Okay, just take in what is there as much as you possibly can. Just a few more. Cool. And as we live in this headspace, this is how we're going to approach everything. Even when we get into the very difficult stuff, this kind of like calm, centered approach is how we're going to approach all of those games. Okay, so gently start to find a little bit of movement in your fingers, and a little bit of movement in your toes, and then a little bit of movement in your jaw. Mouth opens, maybe a little wiggle side to side. And then you can bring your fingers to your jaw, and let's just focus on some stuff that feels really good right now. You'll massage your jaw, massage your temples, anywhere you need to just communicate with the body that like, hey, what we're gonna do this evening is nice and will feel good. And when you feel like you've thoroughly had that conversation with the jaw, we're gonna start with something a little funky, and this may be a new term for all of you, but we're gonna learn our first controlled articular rotation, which is, we're just gonna abbreviate it to a CAR. Okay? Now, a CAR is essentially like if I was just gonna have a conversation with Tam and nobody else, I've got my full attention on her, she's got her full attention on me, I'm not talking to anybody else, and again, it allows us to have a really thorough conversation. The CAR is how we have that very thorough and intimate conversation with specific tissue or specific joints. So we're gonna start with your eyeballs, which is gonna seem super duper weird. So you can do this with your eyes closed, so we're not like seeming like a lunatic. I want you to just gently look as far to your left as you can with just your eyes. Try not to move your head. Your body's gonna be like, please move your head, and try not to do that. And then look to your right. And you'll start with that, just looking laterally left and laterally right a few times. Now, the reason that your head will want to move is because we're not actually used to using our ocular tissue. And most of the time, if we're like looking with something or on our phone, the whole body and head moves, but the eye tends to stay in the same place. So I want you to just kind of communicate with the musculature in your eyes. Once that feels good, you can start looking up and start looking down. Again, your skull might want to try and move. Just try to stay calm. Remember to breathe. I'm gonna say breathe about 1,000 times today, just as a reminder. And then to take the eye through the full range of motion, you'll start finding a great big slow circle, which for this one, I do find it easier with your eyes closed because the ocular tissue is really, really amazing and it's really, really fast. So with your eyes open, it's actually really hard to get kind of a rotational smooth curve. It'll be kind of stuttery. So if you need to, the metaphor that I often use for my own self is I pretend I'm following a slow bug. And I'm watching that slow bug fly around, and that's how I'm moving the eyeball all the way around in one direction and all the way around in the other direction. And again, kind of keep that little like scientist hat on. So if you're tensing up in your jaw or your hands or your face, calm, calm, calm. So we're just having that conversation with the eyeballs. Almost done, I promise. I know this is, oh God, we're gonna just do eyeball stuff the whole time. We're not. Okay, for 3. For 2. Excellent. All right, let's bring some movement back into the big stuff. Fingers, toes, wrists, ankles, just anything that feels like an organic communication you want to have until you find a nice big full body stretch like you're waking up first thing in the morning. Reach your hands overhead, reach your toes towards the outside. Nice big full breath in, reach, 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 reach. And as you exhale, gently bring both knees into your chest, hold on to your knees with your hands, and give your little low back a massage, left and right and up and down, anything that just kind of feels good to flatten all of that into the ground. Okay, good. From here, go ahead and bring your feet back down. Perfect, and we're gonna start communicating very gently with the lumbar spine. So itty bitty baby cat cows. So your butt stays on the ground, your upper body stays on the ground. Cows, of course, if I were gonna try and sneak my hand underneath your low back, there's a little bit of an arch, I could. Cat is the opposite. There's no way I could get my hand between your lumbar and the ground. Okay, and if it feels better to do with legs in a different position, you definitely can. And this is really a discussion of communicating with the tissue of the lumbar, so the actual low back muscles, but also your low belly muscles. And then just feeling how those two tissues affect your pelvic tilt, right? So if we imagine that our pelvis is like a cereal bowl, you're spilling the cereal bowl towards your face on cat, and you're spilling the cereal bowl away from your face on cow. Okay, and again, at any point, if you're like, I have no idea what you are talking about, you can say that and we can chat about it, okay? Just for 3. Just for 2. Okay, good. We're gonna go into my favorite core warm-up. I call it the world's greatest exercise for the core because it is, but if something feels weird or you need to take breaks, you definitely can. Go ahead and float your legs so that your shins are parallel to the ground, knees on top of your hips, and then one hand to your thigh on each side, so just underneath the knee. Cool. From here, give me a little bit of cat belly, all right, so you feel supported. And then it's gonna be up to you how much intensity you generate here. You're gonna start trying to push your legs away with your hands, but it's your belly that's going to stop that from happening. So obviously, if we go 0 to 100, max effort, you'll be able to hold this for like 2 seconds. Yeah, it's not gonna be possible. So I want you to find something where it's like we're preheating the oven, so to speak, okay? I need you to still be able to breathe. I need you to, in fact, be able to find great big full inhales. And now, since we're all kind of living that dancer life, if you feel like your hip flexors are trying to grip, the game is to try and send the majority of the work into your belly tissue. So you might have to be a little bit of experimenting phase here to kind of like shift or change the pelvic tilt like we were just playing with. And ideally, we have a majority of effort in the belly rather than in the hip flexor. Okay, so if at any point you've got to take a break, you can take a break. We're just gonna do this for probably 10 more seconds. And the ideal outcome of this is that you're like, wow, my belly is alive and I found nice big full inhales. I can feel the air expanding through my whole rib cage, through my chest, through all sorts of spots. Toasty. And then take a little break. Perfect. Come on up to a little seat.
I like that.
Cool. Pretty manageable?
Yeah.
Anything feel weird? Did the hip flexors feel weird on that?
That felt good.
No? Okay, perfect. Excellent. We're going to warm up the rest of the body, and then today I really want to focus on spine stuff, hip flexors, spine stuff when it comes to your thoracic pocket, and then shoulders and hips, okay? First, we're going to do some of the rest of the cars so we can warm up the whole body. So we're going to start with scapula. So I'm going to face the side so you can see what I'm doing. Spine stays still. This is not cat-cow or flexion or extension. Imagine there's a little tattoo on my shoulder, and I'm going to move that tattoo in the biggest, slowest circle I possibly can. But if you look at my elbow, I'm not like choo-chooing, okay, because that's coming from the actual shoulder joint. This is really about your scapula, okay? So the scaps come together, they make your neck disappear, they push apart, and they come down, okay? So it's rotational, but I also want you to think about compass. So you're gonna go all the way to the north, all the way to the east, all the way down to the south, and then all the way back to the west. Okay, and then you're gonna kind of combine the effort of that directional tissue and carve into the corners of it. Now, if this feels pretty doable and it's not too difficult, we're gonna start layering on a little bit of effort. So you'll make fists, you'll pin the arms in tight to your body, and then if I came over to try and like knock you over, brace yourself, and then keep that tension and go through the scap car, okay? There's not like a rightness or a wrongness in terms of how many need to go forwards, how many need to go backwards. Just get good at everything. So if there's one particular spot where you're like, God damn, why can't I communicate with this pocket? Give that a little bit of TLC, okay? If anything feels pinchy or feels weird, we avoid. General rule of thumb, green means go, yellow means slow, red means stop. Cool? Keep breathing. Almost done. For 3, for 2. Now, just because I'm stopping doesn't mean you have to. You can always finish the cycle of what you want to do. Let's warm up the rest of the thoracic, and I want you to give me a nice big bear hug. Nice thing about seated is that the hips won't be able to move as much, but they will still try and help you. So just imagine that like your left butt and your right butt are grounded into the floor. Nice big breath. And as you exhale, let's twist to the left first. Hold it, big breath. Twist a little bit deeper. Cool. In the twist, you're going to stay in the rotation, but I also want you to cat. So you're going to round in the twist. And then stay in the twist, but now you're going to cow. It's like you're trying to bring your sternum up towards the ceiling. Good. Now stay in the twist, stay in cow. Start to twist in cow to the opposite side. We'll twist all the way over to the mirror. Nice big breath. As you exhale, twist a little bit deeper. And now we'll go into the twist, but into cat. Okay, so now you can kind of do this at your own pacing. You get the general idea. We're taking the thoracic through both rotations and through cat and through cow. So ideally, you get good at finding the transition across in cow, finding the transition across in cat. If you're in your head about like, am I doing this right? Close your eyes. Tell that little voice, thank you, but you're not super helpful here. And instead, hone in to the actual communication that you're receiving from your body. Any areas where you're like, holy hell, that feels really tight or dense, hold and give a little love in terms of a big inhale and a big exhale. And again, if there are areas that feel like they are pinchy, we're going to talk about what to do with that in just about 2 seconds. Yep, and you can breathe a lot. When I do this, I'm like mostly crying, so whatever you need to do, go for it. And again, if you need to finish it out, I want to make sure you feel balanced right side and left side. And that's not necessarily like 30 seconds left side, 30 seconds right side. It's really more of just, I feel like I've evenly communicated with both sides. When you're ready, we'll start taking a look at the neck, and we'll talk about what to do with that kind of like closing angle pinch pain. So neck, we'll start with just some lateral movement, ear to shoulder, chin to shoulder, and then great big slow circle all the way around until we come back to the chest, and then we'll just reset and find lateral opposite way, chin, nice big slow beautiful circle. Keep the shoulders still, keep your body still. Again, the body's going to be like, let me try and make this easier on you, and it's going to want to do a bunch of things. Just stay as stationary from collarbones down as you possibly can. Now, as you go through this, I'm going to explain the closing angle game. More likely than not, when you put tissue into a stretch position, you will feel stretch sensation, which makes sense, right? But sometimes, instead of a stretch sensation, you will feel kind of like a ka-ka-ka, pinchy, closed feeling in the short tissue. That's what we call closing angle joint pain. It doesn't have to be pain necessarily. It can just be that kind of like weird tightness. Are you experiencing that a little bit, any of you? It's okay if you're like, not at all. Cool. Where do you feel it? On that left side? Okay, cool. Nothing on the right side?
Sometimes.
But not much?
No, it's usually just the left.
Okay, cool. Perfect.
I feel it here when I'm up there.
Uh-huh.
Just like a little bit.
Does it feel like it's stretching though when you do that?
More so.
Okay, fair enough.
And then like if I push it, obviously I'm pushing it a little hard, but then
Yeah.
and then on this one,
It feels
corner, I can feel it pinching here.
on the back tissue?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so general rule of thumb of how to approach closing angle joint pain. It doesn't benefit us to push into it, okay? So the first little bit, yeah, we can imagine that like the good stuff is green and the closing angle stuff is red. You'll just live in the green. So for you, for example, because it's, if we imagine it like a big pie, that particular slice of pie tastes bad, just don't eat that slice. So you'll come over, meh, and then you'll go back the other way. Oftentimes, just by eating the good stuff, that bad stuff will start getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It might take a little bit of time, but then that's why we're going to learn other tools of how to go even further into that. But as a general rule of thumb, start with that. But Tam, if you've got multiple slices of pie that don't feel good, right, you can kind of Swiss cheese it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So instead of pushing in, you'll kind of make a little bubble around the worst part of it and then continue the circle. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. And this closing angle joint pain idea, you can apply to everything in terms of the shoulder, or the hip, or the ankle, whatever it might be, okay? Okay, good. Let's just start warming up the shoulders a little bit, and then we're going to do a deep dive here in a sec. So we'll start with axial rotation. So elbow out. This is a little intense, so if you want to start a little bit lower, you definitely can. The opposite hand, go ahead and touch your collarbone or your trap. The main goal here, so this is your humerus bone, just one big solid bone. As you externally rotate and internally rotate, I want us to try and feel that bone deep inside the socket, okay? So if you feel like trap or you feel like other stuff trying to like do things for you, be like, my friend, relax, chill, and see if you can just go right into this. It's sometimes referred to as the capsule. It's not like an actual capsule that exists. It just means that because this is one big bone, when it rotates, we know we're working at the deepest layer of that joint.
Okay.
And this will apply to the hips as well because they're built very similarly, okay? Let yourself breathe. And if this is easy, same thing that we've kind of been doing, you can layer on tension. You can make a tighter fist. You can give me like a little ticket to the gun show. You can do any of that action, and that will heighten the level of communication that you're hearing back from the shoulder. And then breathe, of course, okay? Cool. If at any point you're dealing with like a shoulder injury, rotation is going to be our best bet. And again, because this is intense, you can always just bring it down further until you find range that is acceptable. And then the same general idea of living in the green is going to help us tremendously with injuries. We don't force anything, we just live in the good stuff. Okay, when you feel good on that, switch sides. And then in particular, especially if we're dealing with spine stuff, like Tam we're gonna look at in a second here, it's weird, but so I was working with a dancer yesterday who had like a really horrible neck trap situation, and it was giving more range and space and communication inside the shoulder joint, which then allowed the central nervous system to be like, oh, thank fuck. I don't have to do all of this work for this other joint. It finally had enough space and enough trust to then be like, oh, I can actually relax a little bit in the trap in the neck. Because I'm sure you might be feeling a little, that's why I have this extra hand here, because especially on internal, the scapula's like, I'm going to participate. And they just be like, no, chill, bro. Right? And then add as many layers to this in terms of tension if you need. Big, calm, slow breaths. The moment we stop breathing, or even if the breath becomes less, the CNS starts to do a little like, are we okay? Should we panic? So then, yeah, feel free to make space, make noise, whatever you need. Okay, cool. Excellent. Now, into the rest of the spine. So we did thoracic, we did cervical, which is neck. This one is a game where if we think about what we just did in the shoulder joint, it's a little less complicated only in the sense that it's one singular joint. It's a bone, one spot, and we're just communicating with that. Spine, holy hell, you've got all of these tiny little bones stacked on top, and sometimes like with your lumbar, it's just guts. There's just stuff floating there and then random bones, okay? So how we're gonna have that like very precise, intimate conversation is instead of it just being regular cow and regular cat, it's going to be segmentations. So I'm gonna try and have an intimate, slow conversation with each piece as I go into the full shape, and then you will repeat that process as slowly and methodically as you can. Now, when you first start this, there will probably be blank spots where you're like, sweet God, I don't know how to move this one pocket. I'm gonna give you a tool in just a second. So first, just see how this goes, and then we'll talk about it from there. If I was a betting man, after having worked with many, many clients for a long time, thoracic, all of the rib cagey stuff, will be the hardest for us to find communication with. And that's okay. Remember to breathe, take your time, and then there's no rightness or wrongness again in terms of where do I start? Get good at everything. You start from your hips one time, you start from your head one time. Okay, no rush at all. And actually, as I'm watching you guys, y'all are advanced movers, so I'm gonna go ahead and teach you the tool as you move through it. So the tool is something called pails and rails, which stands for progressive angle, isometric loading, and regressive angle, isometric loading. All that means is it's a way for us to generate force in long positions and short positions. Okay, so as you're going through your segmented cat-cows right now, at any point, if you're like, gosh, I wish I had better communication here, or this spot feels a little bit sticky, you will start finding pails and rails by squeezing your hands and knees towards each other or pushing them away from each other. So you're just generating a little bit more force. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah? Cool. So go through that one more time, and then we'll do the actual pails rails discussion together. Okay, cool. Any insights, any questions, any light bulbs before we move on into the next phase? No? Nothing? Okay, cool. So pails and rails, the general idea, if we go back to our neck thing for a second, the science-y nerdiness of it is this is a more open angle, so this is the progressive angle, and this is the shorter closed angle, so this is the regressive angle. The idea of pails and rails is to create more space by strengthening the elongated tissue and strengthening the shortened tissue. So in our cat-cows, you can watch me do this first, and then we can play the game.
I'll coach you through it actually, so go ahead and just watch me first. So if I wanted to get better at my cat position, right, I'm going to find pails first, which means I'm trying to strengthen this whole elongated tissue. And I'm going to do that by pushing my knees back and my hands forward, but it's not my scaps, right? So scaps stay out of it. And then you see how that gives me a little bit more than I had before. Now I'm going to try and use the short tissue, which will be like belly, some hip flexors, some stuff like that, by squeezing my hands and knees towards each other so that I can try and keep all of that space that I just earned, and then you'll go through that cycle again, okay? And that'll create a little bit more space. So let's go ahead and start off with cat. So what I was just doing. Go ahead and fully round, shoulders out of the ears. Remember to breathe, and if you need to bring your hands and knees closer, you definitely can. Any originations that you get in the body, listen to them, okay? Slowly start to find the pails effort. So your hands are coming towards my side of the room, your knees are getting away from me, and you're finding more rounding because of that oomph type of effort. Remember to breathe, take your time, and then the rails effort, keep what you just created, but gently squeeze your knees and your hands towards each other. You'll be like, holy shit, my belly. You might even feel like the intercostal muscles in your ribs. Remember to breathe. 3, 2, round a little bit deeper. One more round. Pails. Push the hands and knees away from each other. Breath, 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 breath. Rails. Squeeze towards. Keep rounding, keep rounding. Find that tight little belly action. 3, 2, relax. Woo! Cool. Make sense? Yep. Yeah. Great. Cow is a little bit more complicated because when we're looking at the lumbar or we're looking at the cervical spine, what wants to happen is it kind of wants to just thunk, and we get into this kind of like closing angle situation rather than like a stretchy in my throat or stretch in my belly. So let's think about it like this. If the sensation is paint, instead of letting the paint pool into those two pockets, I want you to try and spread the paint evenly from the base of the skull down to the hips, okay? The pails and rails effort will be the opposite. So I'm in cow, but when I squeeze for pails, it's hands and knees together first, and then rails is away from each other, okay? So go ahead and find your cow. And again, y'all are advanced movers, so I'm actually gonna let you do this one without me talking about it, okay? You can kind of go your own pacing, spread the evenness of the work, strong fingers, remember to breathe. And if I had an ideal outcome of what was happening in this particular space is that you're feeling the evenness of communication all the way up and down the length of the spine. So if there's one pocket where you're like, where are you? Why can't I communicate with you? See if you can add a little bit of extra pails, rails effort up into that pocket or down into that pocket. You can often take a piece that's really communicative and then move that communicative piece a little bit higher or a little bit lower. Okay? Once you're done with this one, I'm not going to keep you here forever. Go through 1 or 2 more segmentations where you start at one and start at the other. And ideally, you feel like the segmentations are a little cleaner, a little smoother. There's a little bit more communication within it. Okay? And I already introduced the pails rails during the segmentation, so again, you have that tool. Okay? Excellent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Tam, when you're doing this, do you feel that weird thoracic-y spot?
Yes, totally.
Do you feel it in where? Cat or cow?
It's like, so if I'm starting from my tailbone back, it hits, there's a point where I feel it totally.
Ah, excellent. Does it hurt?
Right here, I feel it, yeah. And
okay.
Then, I mean, not like bad.
Yeah. But there's a conversation occurring there.
Happen.
Okay.
And then once I can pass it, then it's okay again.
Understood. So after you've done this a couple of times, does it feel better, worse, the same, or different?
Worse.
Feels worse. Feels like it's aggravated a little bit?
A little bit.
No, totally fine. This is all good data for us. So then I would say as you're healing this particular pocket, same general rule of thumb that we've been talking about when you're exactly, or when you're going through your segmentations, just you back off the gas a little bit through that pocket, but you still want to have, and that's what's tough with injuries in the spine is that because that one pocket sucks, you're going to be like, I got to rest it. I got to baby it. And then nobody else moves either. So you can move the shit out of everything else, but go easy on that pocket.
Totally.
Okay? Okay, good. Questions? Make sense? Problems? Weirdness? Nothing? All right, fantastic. Let's go into low body. So come into a seat for a second. I want to start with toes because are we dancers? Are we dancers? Are we dancers? Are we dancers? Everybody's dancers. All right. So this is something I was working with a bunch of dancers yesterday, and anything like low body related, we went right into the toes, and they're all like, "Why can't I do this?" So if you can't do it, it's not a big deal. It's totally okay. So feet are flat. Try not to invert or evert the ankle, and then you can just touch your knees, because if the knees are moving, that's actually coming from our hips, and we're just gonna have everybody chill. So, foot stays flat. Try and just lift the big toes by themselves. Nice, and then back down. That's okay, yeah, take your time. And if your like brain is having a hard time, that's all right. You just stay calm, you breathe. You can even close your eye and just be like, is anything happening? And then big toes stay, little guys come up. Yep, yep, take your time. Try and relax your fingers. The brain sometimes associates the fingers and the toes as like the same pathway. And we're gonna be like, fingers, not you, my friend. Okay, good, easy. Everybody's up. Just the big toes down. Big toes back up. Big toes down. Yeah, and if you get like little crampies and stuff, that's normal and okay. Nice, okay, big toes stay. Little guys down. Little guys back up. So big toes stay up the whole time. Yep, yep, take your time. And if you got like a left side, right side discrepancy, no big deal. Okay, and then last one will be like piano keys. You'll start from the outside, you go ding, 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 boom. Yep, and if you're feeling really fancy, you can try going from the inside. For me, it looks like flat, like it just tries to go at the same time, and I've been doing it for a long time, so it's whatever. Yep, but ideally, you're just feeling the communication with the tissue. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and use our blocks for this next one. I'm just gonna float it on my leg. I think because I just worked with dancers the past 2 days, I'm inclined to move really into dancery stuff. So the ankle car is really, really importante. So I just want you to float the heel, hold on to the knee, and then you're gonna find the biggest, slowest, most luxurious circle in the ankle you can. Now, if you look at me, my toes kind of wanna help a little bit, but if your toes are doing like a ton, be like, bro, chill, and just have the ankle do it. And then if there's little like, let's see if I can, oh, right there. You see how there's like a little stutter? You're gonna try and smooth out that pocket as much as you can. So anytime you find a little stutter, live in that little stutter until it feels like you're getting a little more capacity over that spot, okay? Take your time. And then because I know you guys are good movers and you have this dance background, yes, communication with the ankle, but also see if you can start getting the big tissue to recruit. So you're feeling your tibialis up through here. You're feeling all of the calfy type of stuff. So you've got like your soleus above the Achilles. You've got the gastrocnemius and like the chicken drum part. Get everybody on board. Yep, and then if your femur's trying to move, that's because the hip is wanting to help you. So see if you can just be like, no, my friend, relax, okay? And then same layering game, if you're like, this is pretty manageable, this is pretty easy. Give me a fist with your foot. Keep the fist in the entire ankle car. Okay, it'll probably make it a little more skakaka, or you might get the crampies in the toes and the arch. Not a big deal. Essentially what we're trying to do in a lot of this is give your body way more options than it has before, and the only way that we do that is by pushing with strength into our end ranges. Did you have a question or you just cramped? Just cramping, no big deal. The cramping is something called neurological confusion, which essentially means like in our hands, I can make a 2% fist or a 40% fist. I've got a lot of subtlety and nuance. The cramp means that that tissue has never received so much neural drive before, so it goes, 1,000? Is that what you want from me? And it feels terrible, and as you get better at it, the cramp will become less and less and less. Okay, cool. Good, go ahead and switch sides when you're ready for it. Start off with that kind of neutral toe variation, and then once that feels okay, you can move into the tight contraction-y phase. Let yourself breathe. How you doing, boyos?
Good.
We're good? Do I need to move around more?
We're adjusting to you.
Okay, perfect.
Whenever you're facing downwards.
You guys are fucking great. Okay, all right, perfect. Nice. Any data points that you want to share with me, you can always pick up if you're like, I'm feeling closing angle joint pain or I'm feeling weird stuff. That's what we're going to move into specifically on shoulders and hips here in a bit. But since y'all are here, why not? How's that weird spot for you, Tam?
Actually, on my other side,
Yeah.
good.
Like gone?
I felt way smoother than
Great.
When we last.
That's
worked on
terrific.
it. Yeah.
You've been using it too, right? Have you been like going to?
A lot,
Okay, cool.
actually.
Good.
This past week, I've been doing.
God, that makes
a
me
lot of
happy.
stuff. Yeah.
Good. Cool.
It was really sore after we went hiking.
Oh yeah.
But then I worked out the next day.
I know it was fine.
Yeah. Now. Took
But
like
it
a couple
sucked then.
days. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But now I feel fine.
All right, fair.
Yeah.
All right, so finish this up. I don't want to rush you ever, so make sure the communication feels like I had a really good conversation with this ankle and I had a really good conversation with this ankle. Again, because dancer life, I feel like it's important for us to talk about knees, and then we'll do the deep dive on the hips. So knees have the ability to rotate, which is something that's never, ever flippin' talked about or trained. So I want you to give your leg like a little jujitsu hug, and that's essentially just to not let it go anywhere. Okay? If you imagine that there's an arrow coming out of your shin and there's an arrow coming out of your heel, I want you to get that arrow to rotate out and rotate in. It's not your toes, because the toes sometimes are like, oh, I'm gonna recruit the ankle, and it's not an ankle conversation. It's really this bone rotating up inside the knee joint, okay? Now, in terms of the specifics of what you are feeling, if you're only feeling ankle, I want you to relax it so you get a little bit of friction, so there's a little bit of a glide through here, right? And that'll make it a little more difficult because of the friction, but I want us to start being able to distinguish what is ankle and what is knee or not. Okay, so this is just the rotational component of the knee car. The full knee car, if I get my leg out of the way, is gonna look like this. I'm gonna basically try and crush my forearm using my hamstring, and I'm closing my knee as tight as I possibly can. That's when I create the rotation. I keep the rotation as much as I possibly can throughout the duration of extension. Now, you're not gonna be able to keep the rotation and lock out, because that's not how knees are made, because we have a patella. So you'll go as far as you can, and then you'll come back down. You'll crush the forearm, create the opposite rotation, come up until you feel like you're getting stuck, and then you'll gently come back down. Okay, so everybody's gonna be a little bit different here. You might be feeling low limb tightness at the top. You might be feeling hamstring or hip flexory stuff, normal and okay. But again, if we think about this like green concept, if you're like, okay, that feels pretty chill, that feels pretty good, then you really create the torque. You really wanna generate force as you're going through both extension, straight leg, and flexion, bent leg. Nice, nice. Keep going, but are you guys feeling conversation with the knee?
Yeah.
You're feeling some stuff in the knee? Okay, fantastic. Because sometimes that's one of those things that like takes a while to figure out. So if you're ever in doubt and you're like, all right, this man told me I need to rotate my knee and I only feel something else, think about giving me a little bit of a hamstring activation as you find the knee rotation, and that'll start helping turn on the knee, because that's like the big tissue responsible for that is the hamstring, okay? Okay, good. Go ahead and do the other side. Start off with your rotation. And then same game, like everybody is different and there is no preference in terms of like, you have to feel this or you have to feel that. But the thing that has seemed to help my clients the most is giving you options. So if I'm like, can you? And you can't, then we're in trouble, right? But if you can, and you can take it away and you can do all sorts of stuff with it, then the world is your oyster, right? Do whatever you need with it. Good. See that little ankle? You've got the perfect socks for this. So if your sock starts to collapse, then it's your ankle, right?
I can feel it better when I have my foot down.
Totally. Or actually,
I try to like lift up.
then it wants to help. So to actually help that, I know y'all are not allowed to do this, but if you sickle, keep the sickle in the knee rotation. Does that make sense? Cool. So then you're like massively taking away the ankle help, and it has to be in the knee. And then you can then go through the full knee one when you're ready for it. Nice. Yep, and then general same principles, like if you run into like a skakaka kind of stutter, there's something happening there. More likely than not, it's actually strength is, yes, a muscular game, but it's almost more a central nervous system game. It's the brain and the neurons being like, what are you doing? And then it's trying to build competence in that pathway. Cool. Weirdness? Issues? Nothing? All right. What'd you say?
I'm much harder on this side.
That's okay.
My
That's
ankle kept wanting to be like.
Yep,
I
and
gotta do it.
and especially for dancers, depending on what type you train, you're gonna have the base leg, and then you have the leg that wants to do all like the discrepancies. You'll be like, where is that coming from? Totally okay. The goal is again just choices. Can you or can you not? And if you can't, then we're gonna work our way towards being able to have more options. Okay. Which leads us to hips. So hips are hilarious and complicated. It's the biggest joint in the body. But if we think about the conversation we were having with the shoulder, it's super duper similar, and that's the kind of comparison that we're gonna play with. So let's go into what's gonna be everyone's favorite position, 90-90. So it's called 90-90 because if you look down from like a bird's eye view, you've got 90 in the hip, you've got 90 in the knee-ish, okay? So let's think about this game we were playing in the shoulder. How we're gonna duplicate that is I want you to come down to your forearm, let the knee be on the ground, and if that can't be possible, you're gonna roll your top hip a little closer to the knee, or if you need to like prop it with something or a hand or whatever, not a big deal. Let's just see if we can externally rotate by lifting the ankle but not the knee. Yeah, and if you're like, I cannot do that, that's okay. Cool. So if that's not the case, I want you to lie down like a tiny little baby, and you can use the block for your head if you want to, and then this one, you'll be like, oh, okay, great. I can at least lift it a little bit higher than I thought. Okay. Now, in an ideal world, as you go through this a couple of times, it's the same type of shoulder conversation. The femur, great big bone, inside joint, I want you to try and have the conversation with that deep, deep, deep pocket of the hip. Okay? Breathe. For 3, for 2. Go ahead and stay in this position. Let your back knee be on the ground, and if it's not, you'll just bring the knee closer to me. Yep, good. Internal rotation is going to be let the back knee stay down, but try and lift the back ankle up off the ground. Fantastic.
Do you
Cool.
keep the front leg off too?
Front leg can chill. It can stay down. It can come up. Yeah, we're just going to have a conversation with that back, I guess your top hip. Okay. Nice. And then ideally, again, you feel it pretty deep in there. So rather than like a lot of the time with dancers, the hip flexors, like I'm internal rotation, and that's okay to start, but I want us to see if we can just get that deeper, deeper, deeper conversation first. Okay. For 3, for 2. Okay, good. I think it's going to be make more sense for us to do the other side and then do our like deep, deep dives. So why don't we swap sides? Test your internal and external rotations first. Yep, no rush. Nice and easy. And if you try the forearm version and you're like, fuck this, then you're gonna lie down like a little baby. Or if you're like, God, there's a massive discrepancy between my left side and right side, not a big deal. Just see what is available to you. Nice. Once you feel like, okay, I got the general idea, I know where my hip stands here, then we'll take a look at the back hip. Or I guess the back leg. Yep. The helpers on this are going to be your lumbar, your obliques. It's essentially, what's your favorite type of cereal? When you were a kid? Cinnamon French toast? Cinnamon toast crunch. Cinnamon French toast crunch. Although honestly, that'd be delicious, and I feel like they did that at one point. Didn't they make it French toast? All right.
I totally thought that's what
I nailed it.
like, yes.
All right, so let's pretend that our cereal bowls are filled to the brim with as much milk and Cinnamon Toast Crunch that it can possibly handle. Essentially, once you lock in where your Cinnamon Toast Crunch is, just don't let it go anywhere once we start having a conversation with the hip. Does that make sense? Yeah. If it doesn't make sense, it'll make sense in 2 seconds. Okay? Okay, good. Once that feels good, let's just stay on this side so we don't have to keep going back and forth. We're going to start introducing some pails and rails effort to start getting better at this particular game. So the 3 levels still apply. You can do hand, you can do forearm, you can lie down like a little baby. I want us to keep the knee down. You're going to grab a hold of your ankle. You can use the block if that helps you instead. And you're basically going to give yourself like a little bicep curl and see if you can get into a stretch of this position. Yeah, and if that sucks, try forearm. Right? Okay, good. So we're going to start with a little bit of pails, rails effort. So pails is I'm trying to rotate down, but my hand is preventing that from happening. Breathe. Rails, I'm trying to rotate out of my hand. Okay, do that a couple of times. Breathe. Nice. Nice. Yep, and if you cramp, no big deal. Let yourself come out of it if you need to. If this feels pretty doable, and it looks like we've got some good success here, I want you to go as deep into that liftoff without lifting the knee as you possibly can. And now we're just gonna do hovers, so I want you to keep the foot where it is, but slowly try and stop helping with the hand. So instead of letting the ankle drop, the foot will just stay there. Okay, take your time.
You're a magician.
I've been doing it for a long time.
I know once
Yep.
my hand comes off this thing.
I'm a monster. Yeah. Yeah, and so if that's the case, it's less like I need the task to be accomplished, and more, I'm just gonna make my hand a little lighter, a little lighter, a little lighter, so you can start putting more of the work into the hip rather than like, I have to, whatever.
Question.
Yes, please.
What if you don't feel it, but your leg is just not going anywhere?
Okay, fair enough. Are you feeling effort?
Like from my inner thighs trying to bring it up, but not in my hip at all.
Understood. So it's tough and the communication feels like a blank spot,
There's no
essentially?
communication, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So then let's go ahead and use this example. Let's use y'all's block. I'm gonna steal this for 2 seconds. Go ahead and place it gently underneath your knee. And we may not need this variation in a second. So we're running into an issue where you've got just not a lot of communication in a spot where you want to have a lot of communication. So this is one tool that we can use to try and hone deeper into a specific pocket. We're essentially just going to train the eccentric phase. So if I'm bicep curling something, this is concentric, this is eccentric, and then this is an isometric, right? So what we've been doing is isometrics, which is there's no real movement, but you're trying to create the pressure. The eccentric is I want you to start sending your knee down into that block, create as much oomph as you can, keep creating the oomph, keep creating the oomph, and then let yourself go as deep into the stretch as you can while creating the effort. And then you'll get into a spot where you're like, okay, that's too intense, or I can't generate effort anymore. You'll fully relax and push back up with your hands. If you're like, fuck this block, then send the block out and try the variation like I'm doing where you're just crushing the ground with the knee and the shin and the ankle, and then keep your spine tall. So rather than rounding, it's like you're bringing your belly button over the knee, applying effort, applying effort, applying effort, applying effort, and then you relax and come back up with the hands. Do we feel this?
Hell yeah.
Cool. Where do you feel this?
My inner thigh.
You feel it wanting to do work?
It's just like, I feel like the stretch is only here. And
Ah.
It's just like, I don't know, it feels like
No.
nothing.
That's a great indicator. So you were feeling inner thigh on the liftoff in terms of effort, but now you're feeling inner thigh like it's stretching when you're going into this pocket,
Yeah.
right? Okay, good. So for this particular game, the game for you to start is worry less about the range that you're going into and more be like, where is my outer hip? So if you have to come out of the range, you can put like a hand underneath the knee, try and crush that hand. Yeah, take your time. And so then now that you've got like a little nibble,
Yeah.
you can start playing with a little bit more range. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Play with that first, and then we'll have some fun hip flexory stuff in a second, okay? Okay, good. Let's do back leg. And back leg, you can keep playing, but back leg, we're definitely going to use the block. I want you to stack through here. And in an ideal scenario, you can feel a pretty good stretch. So if you don't feel one here, you're going to basically bring the back hip down. So you're feeling this bone rotate in the socket. And if you need to stack the block higher, you can. Okay, do we feel this? Cool. Pale's effort will be, I'm going to crush the block with my ankle. You can also, if you're having a hard time and similar to what we were talking about where you're like, I don't feel that deep pocket, sometimes giving me like an intentional booty squeeze helps send it deeper into the pocket, okay? Rails will be fucking impossible. I'm gonna ask you to leave the block, but you're gonna have to come out a bit, right? If this is something you've never trained before, you're gonna have to shift out, and I want you to think, I'm gonna give you $1 billion bill, but only if you can leave the block. I got it. $1 billion bill is yours, my man. Yes, yes. Yep, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where do we feel this is the question.
Here.
Pretty deep or superficial? Like, could you
No,
touch
no,
it? It's
that's
like,
deep.
it's in there.
It's in
Oh,
there.
it's deep.
She's in
Okay,
there.
all right, fair enough. Okay.
I feel like all of my hips have to like rotate forward. I'm almost using like momentum.
Yeah. So does that feel, are you spilling your cereal bowl?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
perfect.
trying to stop.
Perfect. So, but it's okay. So the Pails and Rails effort, just as a general game, I don't need the task to be accomplished. So it's less important that the ankle leaves the block. It's more important that you're starting to feel what it would be like to then accomplish the task. Does that make sense? Yeah. So as much of a cheat as you need to start encouraging the conversation, it's a little bit like, let's say you and I do you have a pet? I accidentally killed your pet, right? We'd have to talk about it if we're still gonna be friends, but sometimes I can't just be like right into the thick of it. We have to like weirdly talk about the weather first, and then we'll get into the thick of it. I sometimes feel about it this way where it's like, sometimes you can't get all the way in there, but you have to start and then be like, oh, I've got something, and then you can kind of pull yourself into it. Make sense? Okay, cool. That's essentially the Pails Rails effort on this rotational, but let's stay on that back leg one more time. If you need to take a break, it's totally fine. Because I taught you, so the game where we were applying effort and going into the stretch is our last acronym of the day, I promise. It's called eccentric neural grooving. It's the same thing for this back leg. You're gonna go into your mid-range, so there's no stretch yet, crush the block, keep crushing the block, keep crushing the block, keep crushing the block as you go into the end range. And then you'll fully relax, pull yourself out with your hands and your belly and other things, but not that tissue, right? So essentially, if we think about like a bell curve, what we're trying to do with a lot of this is strengthen the edges of the bell curve, but similar conversation, if we're having a hard time finding it, starting in the meat and then pushing into the edge helps the brain, even more than the tissue, be like, they seem to know what they are doing. It seems like it's safe. So it allows us to find a little bit more range. Cool. Any weirdness or things that we need to chat about before we do the other side? Cool, cool. Okay, good. When you come out, it'll probably feel good for you to do just a little bit of like wibbly wobblies. Yep, and then we'll do the other side. So general rule of thumb, go ahead and go into the other side, and then we'll start with the Pails effort of the external rotation. So this was the game where, let me do y'all's side. This was the game where we were going into a big stretch and then trying to crush the ankle down or lift off, and ideally, again, it's pretty deep. If you're feeling other tissue help off the bat, it's okay. If you're like, God, my inner hip or my whatever, that is an okay place for us to start, but you want to start being able to communicate with the heart of the joint connection, essentially. Okay? Let yourself breathe, take your time with it.
This side is so much worse.
It's okay. God damn, there's some loud birds.
Cheering us on.
They are. They're like, do it! Externally rotate your femurs. And then once this one feels pretty good, you can go into the ENG on this side, which is mid-range, effort, mid-range, effort, mid-range, effort. Fuck, I'm in end range, effort, 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 effort. Okay, and then push back up. But take your time with it. Did you have that same conversation on this side, or is it different?
It's a little bit better because I knew like where.
What to do. Yes, yeah. That is also a really good principle. If one side is like, I have no idea, try the other side, see if you can get a little taste over there, and then bring it back over to the other side. But as a general rule of thumb, even for your hip flexor game, this kind of goes for everybody, what I see mostly in humanity right now is our shoulder and hip internal and external rotation sucks ass, and we never talk about it, we never train it. And then spinal segmentations in general, because of car, desk, chair, all of this stuff, getting all of our individual vertebrae pockets to be better heals a good chunk of all of the stuff. Okay, but we will look at your hip flexors specifically because why not? Nice. Good. And then the ENG will eventually build to needing less help. So you can start with just like fingers, or eventually you can do like no hands and move into this game and apply effort. But the same principles apply at the end. You relax and push out. Cool. Nice. This is little intimate moments for the live stream viewer. Oh, shit. Okay, cool. No rush. Again, make sure that the conversation feels like it's been thorough on this side, but then we get the joy of the internal rotation on the back side. So block or no block, it's up to you. Let's do the pails rails effort first. So it's like a rotation, but it's really more, if we think about left pelvis and right pelvis, you're gonna try and pop one down to the ground, feel it pretty darn deep in there, and then gently start ramping up the effort. So again, just because I've worked with dancers for a long time, y'all like to go 0 to 100. You like to go full out. In an ideal world, you could hold 10% and maintain it, and then 20 and maintain it. And so then you've got options and you've got capacity at every domain of intensity. Training at the most intense, of course, is very beneficial, but we want to just have that kind of thoroughness all up and down the scale.
Are we trying to get our foot off of the block?
That'll be the rails effort. So when you're ready for it, you absolutely can.
Right now we're just rotating our hip.
Yep, but you can move into the rails effort whenever you want. As a general way to apply these principles, I like to do pails, rails, kind of like reset and figure out like, did I gain any range? Are things different? And then I play the game again. Good, and if there's discrepancies on this side where you're like, it feels different than it did on the other side, not a big deal. Let yourself kind of finagle around, or if you have a question about it, ask me. Crampy? Where's the...
Good stretch, like when I push it, like I can feel it deep in there.
Yeah.
I don't even need the block.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, if you allow your, like, sometimes I run into clients where like they can bring their butt all the way down to the ground, so then that's when we need the block, but if you don't need it, not a big deal. Like however gets it done, no problem at all. All right, so then the ENG will be, you're in mid-range, you're applying that rotational effort, and you're pushing into end range with the effort. Cool. Okay, good. Once that all feels pretty balanced, you can come back through center, shake that out a little bit, and then I've got one last little game, one last little flow, and then that'll be the end of the thing. Let's talk a little bit more about the spinal segmentation. We got good hip and shoulder rotate. You know what? No, I'm gonna do some shoulder rotation. I lied. Since you've got a general idea, since we just did the hips, this will go pretty fast. So go ahead and lie down on your bellies. Forehead down towards me, just for we're on the same page. Good, now use your block, and I want you to stack the block underneath your right hand at like a cactus angle. Yep, so elbow on the ground, block underneath the hand. Cool, and then if this feels okay, you can stack the block higher until you start to feel, oh, you know what? I feel a stretch pretty deep inside that shoulder joint. So elbow stays on the ground the whole time. And if you're kind of in a weird middle ground, you can play with the hand position. So you feel a stretch, but you still feel supported by the block, okay? Pails will be, I'm gonna try and crush this mother effing block. Okay, build slowly. Go ahead and keep the elbow on the ground though. So it's really more that isometric. It's the humerus bone rotating that creates the oomph. Rails is now I've gotta float my hand off the block. Take your time. Yep, exactly. And you'll be like, holy shit, yeah, it's okay. The big game here is to try and make sure we're having the conversation right smack dab in the center of the joint. Yep, you get a little crampy, you get a little weird, you need to come out, no big deal. And then if you need more oomph, which I doubt, but if you do need some, fist, ticket to the gun show, as much effort as you can create. Does this make sense, though, as a general idea? Okay, cool, great. Perfect. When you feel content with this conversation, we'll move to the left shoulder. But I wanted us to just make sure that it's like, oh, the data I picked up from the hip game is now applicable to the shoulder game. You okay?
Yeah.
Tell me. Does it hurt?
It stings and it's uncomfortable, but it's not like
Pain.
No, yeah, it's more like I know this would be like how I'm gonna get my shoulder back.
Got it.
You know?
What we're gonna do in a second with the internal will probably make this feel better too. And then as you're moving through it, allow yourself to breathe and see if you can, I mean, all effort is subjective, right? So it's gonna be different for everybody. But I want you to think like, oh, I could hold 10% for a bit. Oh, I could hold 20% for a bit, as opposed to I just am gonna try and do maximum effort right off the bat. Think dimmer, not a light switch. Yep. I see a little bit, our little wristies are trying to pretend that they're the shoulder. So see if you can just stay as flat through elbow to hand as you can. And then especially on the rails effort, try not to like, hi-ya! Like try and slowly gradient rather than momentum through. Yeah, exactly. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay, good. When that's balanced, we'll do internal. You can just look at me for a brief moment. It's the same game, but I want you to lie on your side like a little baby. We're gonna go into internal. You have to be aware of just the same type of like scap help that we've discussed before, but you're gonna block with your hand. Pails will be, I'm trying to rotate into the hand. Rails will be, I'm arm wrestling a ghost. Okay? You close the gap with the floating hand, and then you repeat the game. This one in particular, 1%, 2%, 3%. Okay, breathe. It's gonna be, yes, exactly, opposite side. So on this one, you'll go into the stretch first. Hand here. Now pails. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then rails away from you. Yeah. Misha, better? Still weird? Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay. Cool. We're almost done. Excellent. No rush. When you're like, okay, I feel like I've gotten the flip side of that, roll over, hit the other side. And then Misha, I'll help you with this one really quick. So there's no, I mean, as a general, if I'm trying to be like a decent scientist, I like to try and keep the control factors as minimal as possible. So keeping it at 90 lets me know that like, oh, I haven't changed anything from the last time I did it to this time that I did it. But if 90 sucks, bring it down.
I could try.
No need to force it. So start here, really light. You're applying effort towards me. But keep the hand block, so keep it there. That, exactly. And now try and get away from me. Yep, and then you'll close the gap. Arm wrestle a ghost, exactly. Yep. And then you'll rotate in. Safe? Okay. That's the biggest thing. Again, it's kind of like we're meeting each other for the first time. We have to make sure that there's trust, that there's safety before we can dive into, deep things. Better? All right, cool. Less weirdness than what you were feeling on the external?
Yes.
Still some weirdness?
Less, definitely.
Okay, cool. Okay, good. Questions? Weirdness? Things? Nothing? All right. Let's do one last little bit so that we can figure out how to apply this information. Like if you go take a yoga class, you go take like whatever. What the hell do I do this information? I feel like we taken yoga, we taken some yoga, we taken some yoga, we taken some yoga. Okay, cool. Let's go into a little bit of down dog. Hips up and back, pedal that out a little bit. Cool. Right away off the bat in something like down dog, you can do a little bit of pails rails effort, right? So you're gonna squeeze your hands and knees towards you, or hands and feet towards each other, or push the hands and feet away from each other, right? Just creating a little bit of oomph in that pocket. Now soft as a little kitten, bring your right foot, softly step it outside your right hand. Take 2 breaths to kind of just move in anything that feels good for you, up, down, side to side, anything that you want. And then any pocket where you're like, I feel tightness here, you can pails and rails that tissue. So let's say it's like your right inner thigh. Pails would be, I'm gonna send my knee into my arm. Rails would be, I'm gonna send my knee out towards the mirror, right? And then you close the gap by pushing your elbow out into it, okay? Or if you wanted to pails rails like your hip flexor, you can squeeze your feet towards each other, try and activate that hip flexor tissue. Rails would be, I'm gonna try and push my feet away from each other, right? Cool. Nice, let's do right hand up to the ceiling, nice big twist, big breath in. As you exhale, hand down, step back to down dog. Soft as a little kitten when you're ready, left foot steps outside left hand, Take 2 breaths for you to kind of get the general vibe of what this side needs. But now we just have an additional tool on top of your practice that you can play with. So it's something that you don't have to do, but you have the capacity to play with it if you want. In fact, I might give you a different variation of it, and if you need to do it on the other side to balance out later, no big deal. But if I asked you to Pales Rails y'all's left leg, Pales would be pushing the foot down into the ground. Rails would be, it's not gonna be possible, but I want you to think about getting the left foot to become lighter. So you're feeling strength in that kind of like hip flexor-y tissue of the left side, right? Cool. When you kind of have hit everything that you want, left hand goes up, nice big twist, big breath. Exhale, hand comes down, down dog, up and back. Okay, good. Last bit, push-up position. Gently come down to your knees. You're in a plank in a push-up position. Cool. I want us to start finding a little bit of our obliques, so stay in this position. Give me like a fake laugh or a fake cough. See if you can activate that oblique. Hell yeah, Tam, fucking going in. Keep it there. Now you've got a delicious tray of treats on your hip. Oh, we've got a giant bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Don't spill the Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Let your right hand become lighter and maybe leave the ground. And then you'll swap with the left. But the Cinnamon Toast Crunch, if you spill it, I swear to God. Yeah, I know. And see if you can support with that oblique tissue, that kind of lateral tissue, more than like the six-packy type of tissue. If I'm thinking of ways to support just dancer life in general, and especially hip flexor and that kind of like grippy feel that you guys talk a lot, getting the obliques to be able to be really strong in this position is one way I've found to be able to massively benefit. Cool. When we feel toasty and feel beneficial here, come all the way down to the ground. Last little bit. Okay, so if we think about cobra position, bring your hands back to like that ribby chest area, so it's still underneath you. And then I want us to start having a conversation with the cervical spine first. So bring your chin towards me, and then bring the chin up towards the ceiling. So you're gonna kind of just feel all of the tissue in the back of the neck do some work. Think about spreading the paint, however. So if it's just pinching in one spot, create a little bit more effort by bringing the chin further forward, okay? And then come back down. Now, we're going to use the access in the cervical spine to start getting more pieces of the top thoracic spine, okay? So you're going to bring the chin forward, bring the chin up, start trying to move the paint, the effort, so to speak, down into the first couple of vertebrae of your thoracic by using what's happening in the cervical and then trying to push that effort down, 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 down into the more upper back stuff. Okay, and then you can kind of go through this at your own pacing, down and up, but in an ideal world, and the hands are there to help you, you can start finding a little bit of Pales Rails effort, and that will be like you're squeezing your hands back towards your hips, or pushing the hands towards me, and we start finding more oomph and more pockets all the way up and down the length of the spine. Because if we're thinking about anti-chair shape position, it's this. Okay, let yourself continue to breathe. And then Tam, is that spot being weird here? Fantastic. So then this one, you can go as hard on it as you possibly want. Because a big piece of this is trying to get that spot to understand that, like, you got help, buddy. You got all of these other pockets that are able to move and generate force and do all that stuff, okay? Cool. Once you feel like you've gotten a pretty good pathway from skull all the way down towards like lumbar, let's do tabletop. Let's do one last little bit of segmentation. So you'll just do the wavy cat-cows. Bit by bit by bit. Cool. Okay, good. I think that's where I'm going to stop class today. So the idea is we're just going to build the foundations and build the foundations on top until we can start getting into more and more complicated stuff. Cool? Cool? Questions? Anything? Make sense? Yeah? Okay, cool. Excellent. These first little bits for sure, just in terms of like even the live audience and stuff, is establishing basic functional mechanics and all sorts of things. But then there will be like flowy, gooey, fun type of classes on top, because then we get to layer Pales Rails tools, car tools, all of these things on top that'll make it a more deep and rich experience. Cool? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you guys so much. You guys can stick around and we can work on specific stuff too. Like we can take a look at your hip flexors and do whatever. It's totally fine with me. But then also you guys aren't prisoners. You can go whenever you want. Cool? Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're amazing. You're amazing. Thank you, boyos. You're amazing. Mwah. Namaste. Appreciate you. Okay. Okay. Cool.
Oh yeah.